Capuchin monkey, the Wall Street capitalist. In 2005, a team of economists at Yale, not biologists, economists, handed a group of capuchin monkeys a pile of small silver discs. Flat, cold, completely useless. The monkeys had no idea what they were. But within weeks, those same monkeys had invented armed robbery. Here's what happened. Economist Keith Chen and his colleagues wanted to test whether the concept of money was uniquely human. So they designed an experiment. Capuchin monkeys, small, loud, about 3 kilos soaking wet, were placed in an environment where they could trade 1 silver disc for a piece of food. 1 disc, 1 grape. 1 disc, 1 cube of jelly. Simple. The monkeys figured out the system almost immediately. They understood that a cold, inedible metal circle had future value, that it could be exchanged, that it was worth holding on to. Now, understanding that a useless object has trade value is not a small thing. That's called opportunity cost. It requires a brain that can suppress the impulse to discard something worthless, because it recognizes the thing will be worth something later. Capuchins can do this because their neocortex, the outer layer of the brain responsible for complex thought, is disproportionately large for their body size. Pair that with pseudo-opposable thumbs that allow them to grip, stack, and physically hold currency, and you've got a primate that is neurologically and anatomically built to participate in a cash economy. But the researchers weren't ready for what came next. During one session, a monkey rushed the tray where the researchers kept the coins. Not his coins, the bank's coins. He grabbed as many as his hands could carry, sprinted back to the enclosure, and hurled them through the mesh to the other monkeys on the other side. Chaos. Every monkey dove for the floor, scrambling to grab as many discs as possible before the researchers could intervene. The research team, trained economists from one of the most prestigious universities on the planet, spent over an hour on their hands and knees trying to recover loose change from a cage full of hysterical monkeys. The experiment had to be paused for the day. That was the first observed case of a non-human bank heist. And the monkey who started it showed no signs of remorse. He just sat in the corner, eating a grape he'd purchased with one of the coins he'd managed to keep. And it wasn't the last surprise. During the commotion, and this was documented in the published paper, a male capuchin took one of his stolen coins and gave it to a female. She accepted it. They mated. Immediately afterward, she walked to the researcher's window and used that same coin to buy a grape. That is a sequence of events that requires no metaphor, no creative interpretation. A monkey paid for mating. The other monkey accepted the payment. And then she spent the money on food. The researchers kept going. They introduced inflation. They dropped the price of jelly, 2 cubes per coin instead of 1, and raised the price of apple slices. And the capuchins adjusted. They bought more jelly and less apple. When prices shifted again, they shifted again. Their purchasing behavior followed the law of supply and demand, with what the economists described as near-human mathematical precision. They even showed risk aversion. When given a choice between a guaranteed payoff and a gamble with the same expected value, most monkeys chose the safe bet. Just like most humans do. A 3-kilo monkey responding to market forces and hedging against uncertainty with the same logic taught in introductory economics courses at the university running the experiment. But the single detail that still gets cited in behavioral economics papers 15 years later is the counterfeiting. Some of the capuchins started taking cucumber slices, which they had access to in their food supply, and biting them into circles. Small, flat, round circles, the exact diameter of the silver coins. They would then carry these cucumber discs to the trading window. and try to hand them over as payment. It didn't work. The researchers could tell the difference between a metal coin and a wet vegetable. But the attempt, the concept, is what matters. The monkeys looked at a currency system, understood its rules, and tried to cheat it. Not with brute force, with forgery. We tend to think of capitalism as the peak of civilizational complexity. The stock market, interest rates, monetary policy, these feel like the products of thousands of years of human development. And maybe the sophisticated versions are. But the underlying instinct, trade a thing for a thing, accumulate wealth, steal what you can't earn, and fake what you can't steal, apparently lives in the brain of a monkey that weighs less than a house cat. The Capuchins needed researchers to hand them currency. They didn't invent money on their own. But on the frozen edge of Antarctica, a bird figured that part out too. And the economy it built is honestly worse. Adelie penguin, the suburban hustler. The currency is stones. Adelie penguins, Pygoceles adeliae, breed in enormous colonies on the Antarctic coastline, and they build their nests out of small, smooth pebbles stacked into shallow mounds on the ice. The pebbles keep eggs elevated above meltwater and provide just enough insulation to prevent the embryo from freezing. Without a proper nest, the egg is gone. So pebbles aren't decoration, they're survival. And on a continent made mostly of ice, smooth stones of the right size are genuinely scarce. That scarcity turned them into money. A mated female, one who already has a partner and a nest, will leave her territory, walk across the colony to where the single males are, and begin a courtship display. Full performance. Bowing, calling, the whole ritual. The single male responds. They mate. And when it's over, the female picks up one of the nicest stones from his nest, carries it in her beak, and walks back to her actual partner. She places the stolen stone in her real nest. Transaction complete. She traded a service for a material good. The male paid the asking price, and the female walked away with the product. But some females figured out something even better. They performed the full flirtation, the bowing, the calling, the approach. And then, right at the moment when the male is committed to the display, they grab a stone and run. No mating, no payment rendered, just the goods. Researchers have watched this happen repeatedly. The male stands there. The female is already halfway home. The unpaid invoice. And that's just the formal economy. The informal one is pure larceny. Studies tracking individual stones using paint markers found that over 50% of the pebbles in any given Adelie nest were taken from a neighboring nest when the owner wasn't looking. Half the housing market is stolen property. Every penguin is simultaneously a homeowner and a burglar. The strangest part of this story, though, isn't the penguins. It's what happened when a human tried to write it down. In 1910, a British naval surgeon named George Murray Levick joined Captain Scott's expedition to Antarctica. Levick spent an entire breeding season embedded with an Adelie colony, documenting everything he saw. What he recorded disturbed him so deeply that he refused to publish his notes in English. He rewrote them in classical Greek, so that only university-educated gentlemen could read them. He figured the general public couldn't handle it. The Natural History Museum of London received Levick's Greek manuscript. They read it, and they buried it. The report wasn't published for nearly 100 years. A century of silence because a penguin's personal life was too much for the British Empire. These days, the Adelie's habits are well documented. The mating for stones behavior has been observed across multiple colonies and confirmed in peer-reviewed literature. The penguin doesn't look like a hustler. It looks like a small gentleman in a tuxedo, waddling across the ice with impeccable posture. But behind that refined exterior Every colony is a dense, competitive marketplace where favors are exchanged for building materials and half the neighborhood's property is lifted before noon. One thing makes all of it possible. Adelie penguins have a supraorbital gland, a specialized organ located just above the eye, that filters excess sodium from their blood and expels it through their nostrils. This allows them to drink seawater directly. They can spend weeks at sea without access to fresh water, fueling up on fish and krill, then return to land with the energy reserves to spend days negotiating, stealing, and defending their real estate. Their body is literally built to sustain the hustle. Penguins trade in stones. At least that's something you can hold, something you can see. But on coral reefs, the most valuable currency isn't a physical object at all. It's reputation. Cleaner Rasse, the PR manager, a fish the size of your index finger swims directly into the open mouth of a grouper that weighs 50 kilos. The grouper has teeth. The grouper has appetite. The grouper does absolutely nothing. This is the business model of the blue streak cleaner Rasse, Labroides dimiditus, and it's one of the most sophisticated service economies in the natural world. Here's how it works. The cleaner Rasse sets up shop at a fixed location on the reef, a cleaning station. Large fish, including predators like groupers, moray eels, and reef sharks, swim to the station voluntarily. They hover in place, open their mouths, flare their gills, and let the tiny Rasse crawl across their bodies, eating parasites, dead skin, and bacterial buildup. The client gets a medical service. The cleaner gets a meal. Both parties leave the interaction better off than they arrived. But what makes this animal remarkable isn't the service. It's the fraud. The Rasse has a preference. Parasites are fine, nutritionally speaking. But the client's healthy mucus, the protective slime coating every fish's body, is far more calorie-dense and, apparently, far tastier. The Rasse knows this. And when no other fish are watching, it cheats. A quick bite of mucus instead of a parasite. The client flinches. The Rasse just stole something it wasn't supposed to take. Now, here's where it gets corporate. Researchers discovered that the Rasse modifies its behavior depending on who's in the waiting room. When other potential clients are nearby, watching the interaction, essentially reading online reviews in real time, the cleaner provides flawless 5-star service. No cheating, no mucus bites, pure parasite removal. Because if a waiting client sees a current client flinch, the waiting client leaves, lost business. The Rasse understands that its reputation is worth more than one stolen snack. It gets more specific than that. The Rasse doesn't just behave better when watched. It behaves better when watched by new clients. Regulars who visit the same station repeatedly get slightly worse service than first-time visitors. The Rasse invests more effort in acquiring new customers than in retaining existing ones. It has, without ever seeing a spreadsheet, developed a client acquisition strategy. But alone, no audience, the Rasse cheats almost every time. And when a cheat bite does happen in front of others, when the Rasse slips up, it has a recovery protocol. It immediately presses its ventral fins against the client's body and performs a gentle, rhythmic rubbing motion. Marine biologists call it a tactile massage. It calms the client, reduces cortisol indicators in the larger fish's body, the equivalent of a restaurant manager comping your dessert after the waiter spilled soup on your sleeve. Customer retention at its most literal. The Rasse can pull this off because of its lateral line system, a sensory organ that runs along the side of its body and detects minute pressure changes and vibrations in the surrounding water. The Rasse's version is unusually refined. It can sense the exact moment a client's muscles tense, The instant irritation begins, and it adjusts its behavior in milliseconds. It's reading its customers' body language with a precision that most human service workers would envy. But the detail that rewrites what we thought we knew about fish came from a lab in Japan. In 2019, researchers placed cleaner wrasses in front of mirrors and put a small brown mark on their throats, a spot visible only in the reflection. Fish that saw the mark in the mirror swam to nearby rocks and scraped their throats against the surface, trying to remove it. Fish without the mark didn't scrape. Fish with the mark, but no mirror, didn't scrape. And in a final control, fish given a transparent mark, one they couldn't see even with the mirror, also didn't scrape. The wrasse wasn't reacting to a physical sensation on its skin. It was reacting to what it saw in its own reflection. It recognized itself. That's the mirror test, the benchmark for self-awareness that human children don't reliably pass until around 18 months old. Dogs fail it. Cats fail it. Most monkeys fail it. A fish the length of a crayon with a brain that wouldn't fill a thimble passed it. And then came the economics experiment that might be even more surprising than the mirror. Researchers gave cleaner wrasses a choice between two food plates. One plate was fixed. It would stay on the table no matter what. The other plate would be removed after a short window if the wrasse didn't eat from it first. The wrasse figured it out immediately. Eat from the fleeting plate first. Then come back for the fixed one. Prioritize the walk-in client who might leave over the loyal regular who'll wait. They ran the identical test on chimpanzees, our closest living relatives. 98% shared DNA. The chimps couldn't figure it out. They kept going to the fixed plate first, losing the fleeting one over and over. A fish outperformed a primate in a test of market logic. The cleaner wrasse weighs about as much as a few coins. Its brain is smaller than a pea. And yet it runs a service business with dynamic pricing, reputation management, client retention massage protocols, self-awareness, and economic prioritization skills that surpass those of animals, with brains 1,000 times larger. Some problems, it turns out, don't require a big brain. They just require the right pressure. And a reef where your next client is always watching is exactly the kind of pressure that builds a very, very good businesswoman. The neighborhood spy. Prairie dog. A prairie dog spots you walking toward its colony. It opens its mouth and fires off a single chirp 1/10 of a second long. In that chirp, compressed into a sound shorter than a finger snap, it has told every member of its colony the following: there is a human approaching. He is tall. He is walking fast. He is wearing a bright blue shirt. That is not a metaphor. Prairie dogs, Siamese, have been running a language so detailed, so grammatically loaded, that researchers needed artificial intelligence to even begin decoding it. Dr. Khan Slobodchikov spent decades recording and analyzing their alarm calls in the grasslands of Arizona. And what he found wasn't a simple warning system. It was a vocabulary. Over 100 individual words, nouns, adjectives, descriptors for speed, size, shape, and color, packed into bursts of sound that last less time than it takes you to blink. The calls don't just describe one category. They differentiate between predator types, coyote, hawk, human, dog, with entirely distinct root sounds, and within each category, they layer on adjectives. A coyote running is a different call from a coyote standing still. A hawk circling high gets a different descriptor than one diving low. The grammar isn't fixed. It's compositional. They're building sentences. And here's where it gets strange. Slobodchikov ran an experiment. He sent different researchers through the colony wearing identical clothing. Then he sent the same researcher back wearing something different. The acoustic analysis was unambiguous. The prairie dogs weren't just distinguishing between human and not human. They were distinguishing between this human and that human based on height. And when the clothing changed, the call changed with it. The prairie dogs were narrating what they saw with the precision of a witness giving a police sketch description. But vocabulary alone isn't language. Plenty of animals have a fixed set of calls. What separates language from a set of alarms is the ability to describe something you've never seen before. So the researchers gave them something they'd never seen before. They sent a black oval through the colony on a wire. An object with no natural equivalent, no evolutionary context, nothing a prairie dog would ever have a reason to name. The colony looked at it and within seconds produced a call that had never been recorded before. A brand new sound, consistent across individuals, repeated with the same acoustic structure each time the object appeared. They invented a word for it. That's not pattern recognition. That's not instinct. That is a brain encountering something unknown and deciding, in real time, that it needs a label. Then broadcasting that label to the community with enough consistency that every member understands it on the first pass. The hardware behind this is as extreme as the output. Prairie dogs have a modified vocal tract that operates at frequencies beyond what human ears can fully parse. Their hearing is tuned to ultra-high-speed processing, which means they can overlay layers of harmonic frequency, essentially stacking consonants and vowels on top of each other into a single compressed burst. Where a human sentence takes 3 seconds, a prairie dog chirp delivers comparable descriptive density in a fraction of that time. They're not simplifying information, they're compressing it. And this is the part that messes with people. Prairie dogs look like background extras from a children's cartoon. Round bodies, tiny paws, the kind of face that ends up on a novelty calendar. Nothing about them suggests complexity. But behind those black eyes is the most sophisticated descriptive communication system found in any non-human animal on the planet. More complex than anything documented in chimpanzees, dolphins, or elephants. They stand at the edge of their burrows, scanning the horizon, and the moment something moves, anything, they file a report in 1/10 of a second. Prairie dogs describe what they see. Japanese macaques decide what's worth copying. The influencer. Japanese macaque. Here's how bath time works at Jigokudani in the mountains of central Japan. There's a natural hot spring. Steam curling off the surface, snow piling up on the rocks around it. And sitting in the water, eyes half closed, completely relaxed, a handful of Japanese macaques, Macaca fuscata. The image is famous. It's been on postcards, documentaries, screensavers. It looks peaceful. What the postcard doesn't show is the monkey 10 feet away, shivering in the snow, watching the ones in the water. She tried to get in 20 minutes ago. She was grabbed, bitten, and shoved back onto the frozen rocks because that hot spring isn't open to the public. It belongs to the dominant matriarchal bloodline, and if your mother wasn't part of the inner circle, you don't get to touch the water. You get to watch. The hierarchy is rigid. High-ranking females and their offspring soak for hours. Low-caste individuals sit outside, fully exposed to the cold, sometimes for entire days. If they approach the edge, the elites respond with immediate physical aggression. No warnings, no negotiations. You're either in or you're out. Literally. And here's the thing nobody expects. The bath doesn't help survival. Japanese macaques already have some of the densest fur of any primate. Their coats are built to handle sub-zero temperatures. They don't need the hot water. The spring does nothing for their ability to endure winter. It is by every biological measure a luxury, a spa. a place to relax because it feels good, not because it keeps you alive. Kyoto University researchers confirmed this in 2018. They collected fecal samples from bathing females and measured glucocorticoid levels, the primary stress hormone marker. The results were dramatic. Females who bathed regularly showed a massive drop in stress hormones compared to those who didn't. The hot spring wasn't medicine, it was therapy. And the elite had figured that out, claimed it, and turned access into a social currency enforced through aggression and bloodline. They invented a wellness ritual and then gate-kept it by birth. But the hot spring isn't even the most human thing about them. In the 1950s, on a small island called Koshima, researchers left sweet potatoes on the beach as part of a provisioning study. A young female, barely more than a juvenile, picked one up, walked to the ocean, and washed it in the salt water. Not just to clean it. The salt seasoned it. She had, in a single moment, invented food preparation. Other young macaques watched her. Within months, they were doing the same thing. Within a few years, the behavior had spread across the entire younger generation. Nearly 100% of juveniles and young adults adopted the technique. The older macaques, the ones who had been eating sandy potatoes their entire lives, refused. Not because they couldn't learn. They watched it happen. They saw the younger generation doing it daily. They simply would not adopt the new method. Researchers observed adult after adult pick up a potato, look at the ocean, and eat it unwashed. The behavior spread upward through the age groups slowly, grudgingly, with the oldest members of the troupe taking the technique to the grave without ever trying it. A generational technology gap. Early adopters versus holdouts. The young macaques embraced a better method instantly, and the older ones rejected it for no functional reason, just because it wasn't how they'd always done it. If that dynamic sounds familiar, it should. The architecture behind this is physical. Japanese macaques have an unusually dense concentration of mirror neurons in their premotor cortex, the brain region responsible for observing an action and feeling the internal pull to replicate it. It's not just learning, it's compulsion. When a macaque sees another macaque doing something, the brain fires as if it's already doing the thing itself. That's the biological root of trend adoption. The neurological mechanism behind wanting to belong, wanting to fit in, wanting to do what the group does, not because it's useful, but because not doing it feels wrong. Every influencer economy, every aesthetic trend, every wave of social pressure that sweeps through a generation and reshapes behavior, it starts here. In a primate brain wired to copy, seated in a hot spring it doesn't need, refusing entry to anyone born on the wrong side of the bloodline. The macaque trend lasted decades. The orca version? Weeks. And somehow that's more unsettling. The mean girl. Orca, summer of 1987. The Pacific Ocean. A group of adolescent orcas, or Canis orca, went out hunting salmon. Normal behavior, nothing unusual. They caught the fish, brought them to the surface, and then, instead of eating them, started balancing the salmon on top of their heads, just wearing them, like hats. Within days, other pods in the area were doing the same thing. Juveniles across the region were swimming around with limp salmon draped over their skulls, showing them off to each other, performing what marine biologists could only describe as a fashion trend. It spread fast, it spread wide, and then, a few weeks later, it stopped. Completely, every single orca dropped the behavior at roughly the same time, as if someone had quietly declared it over. Nobody ate the fish. Nobody gained anything from it. It was aesthetic. It was performative. And it had an expiration date, exactly like every human trend that peaks, saturates, and vanishes once the novelty wears off. This isn't a quirk. This is what orca brains are built to do. The orca possesses a paralimbic lobe, a region of the brain tied to social bonding and emotional processing, that is more developed than in any other animal studied, more developed than in humans. That's not a typo. The neural hardware responsible for empathy, social connection, grief, and the intense need to belong to a group is physically larger and more complex in an orca's brain than in ours. What this creates is a creature with extreme emotional intelligence, fierce loyalty to its family unit, and a sensitivity to peer dynamics that borders on obsession. That sensitivity cuts both ways. Within the pod, it produces cooperation so tight that orcas coordinate hunts across kilometers using synchronized vocal calls. Grandmothers, post-reproductive females who no longer breed, lead migrations. Remember where the salmon run thick in lean years and pass survival knowledge to their daughters' calves. When a grandmother is gone, her pod's survival rate drops measurably. She's not just family. She's a living library. But between pods, that same emotional intensity produces something closer to cultural warfare. Different orca families living in the same stretch of ocean, sometimes within acoustic range of each other, share 0% of their vocal repertoire. Not similar dialects, not regional accents. Completely separate languages, developed over centuries of deliberate cultural isolation. They do not interbreed. They do not share food. They do not acknowledge each other. Families that have swum the same waters for thousands of years treat each other as if the others don't exist. And the boundary is built entirely on how they speak. Accent-based segregation. Cultural walls maintained not by geography, but by choice. And then there's the boat thing. Since 2020, a population of young orcas off the coast of the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, has been approaching luxury sailboats, ramming their hulls and systematically destroying their rudders. Dozens of incidents. Multiple boats sunk. The encounters follow a pattern. The orcas target the rudder specifically, bite and twist it until it breaks, and then leave. They don't attack the people on board. They don't try to capsize the vessel. They go straight for the steering mechanism, disable it, and move on. The scientific body tracking these interactions, the GTOA, a dedicated orca boat interaction task force, because that's apparently something we need now, has classified the leading explanation. It's not aggression. It's not territorial defense. It's not revenge for some prior injury. It's a trend, a juvenile fad. One young orca figured out that ramming a rudder produces a satisfying response. The boat spins, the humans panic, the fiberglass cracks in a way that apparently feels interesting against their teeth. Other juveniles watched. They copied. The behavior spread across the subpopulation the same way the salmon hat spread in 1987. Adolescents teaching adolescents that this particular form of recreational destruction is the thing to do right now. The adults don't participate. The older members of the population continue hunting, socializing, and migrating as they always have. It's the teenagers. It's always the teenagers. And that's the part that sticks. The orca is the apex predator of the ocean. Nothing threatens it. No shark, no whale, no human vessel poses a real danger to a healthy pod. They sit at the absolute top of every marine food chain on the planet, and they have for millions of years. Their brains are enormous. Their social structures are ancient and sophisticated. Their emotional processing rivals or exceeds our own. The Tinder catfish, cuttlefish, Sepiida. Half of this animal's body is telling a female he's the most attractive male in the reef. The other half, the side facing the actual dominant male 2 feet away, is pretending to be a harmless female just passing through. Same body, same moment. 2 completely different identities running simultaneously, like a split-screen live stream where each half is broadcasting to a different audience. And the cuttlefish isn't guessing. He knows exactly which side each viewer can see. To understand how this is even physically possible, forget everything you know about camouflage. Chameleons get all the credit, but chameleon color change is slow, hormonal, and frankly pretty limited. The cuttlefish operates on a completely different level. Its skin is loaded with 3 types of specialized cells: chromatophores, leucophores, and iridophores, each one a tiny sac of pigment connected directly to the nervous system. Not hormones, neurons. The brain fires, the sacs contract or expand, and a high-resolution image renders across the skin in about 200 milliseconds. That's faster than a human blink. The cuttlefish brain is essentially a biological GPU, processing and projecting complex visual patterns in real time across independently controllable zones of the body. And this hardware isn't wasted on simple hiding. The small males, the ones who'd get chased off, or worse if they approached a female openly, use it to run the most sophisticated identity fraud in the animal kingdom. They're called sneaker males, and the name undersells what they actually do. A sneaker male positions himself between a guarding alpha and a receptive female, then splits his display right down the middle. Courtship colors on one flank, female mimicry on the other. The big territorial male sees a fellow female drifting by. The actual female sees a bold, flashy suitor. Neither one realizes they're looking at the same animal. Here's where it stops being clever and starts being unsettling. Researchers at Macquarie University in Australia documented that this trick isn't just biological reflex. It involves spatial geometry. The cuttlefish calculates sight lines in 3 dimensions. It tracks the angle of the rival male relative to its own body, determines whether the split illusion will hold from that specific perspective, and only activates the display if the geometry checks out. One rival, positioned correctly, the con goes live. But if a second rival appears from another angle, the whole thing shuts down instantly. Because 2 different viewing angles would expose the seam. The illusion would collapse. And the sneaker male knows this. He doesn't just lie. He runs the math on whether the lie will survive the room. And the results? Sneaker males achieve fertilization rates up to 30% higher than the giant territorial males, the ones who spend their entire lives patrolling, fighting, and physically dominating their rivals. The biggest, strongest cuttlefish on the reef is being outbred by a scrawny con artist running a fake dating profile on his own skin. Think about what that means for a second. The entire logic of natural selection. The biggest, strongest, most aggressive male gets to pass on his genes. Doesn't just have an exception here. It has a loophole the size of a canyon. The sneaker male invests nothing in muscle, nothing in territorial aggression, nothing in the physical arms race that dominates almost every other species on the planet. He invests everything in deception, and it works better. Not marginally, 30% better. The nerd didn't just outsmart the bully. He made the bully's entire strategy obsolete. Millions of years of evolution, and the most effective reproductive strategy isn't size. It isn't strength. It's knowing exactly when to stop lying. The cuttlefish fakes who he is. The next animal fakes what he owns. The freeloader, sea lion, Otaridae. In San Francisco, Pier 39 has a problem that weighs several tons and refuses to leave. California sea lions started showing up on the marina's floating docks in 1989. A few at first, then dozens, then hundreds. They claimed the wooden platforms, sprawled across every surface, and simply stayed. They bask, they bark, they shove each other for the best spot. And if a human approaches, a dock worker, a marina manager, anyone, they growl in unison, not individually, in chorus. Like a union on strike, collectively refusing to acknowledge that anyone else has a claim to the real estate. This is an animal sculpted by millions of years of open ocean evolution. Hydrodynamic body, powerful rotating flippers, the ability to dive hundreds of feet and hold its breath for nearly 10 minutes. A perfect marine athlete, built for speed, depth, and endurance. And it chose unemployment. Why hunt in the freezing Pacific when fishing boats return to port? Every afternoon loaded with easy meals. Why dive when you can just climb onto a net and eat? Why do anything at all when tourists think you're adorable and the city passed an ordinance protecting your right to lie there? It's not a small commitment to laziness either. In multiple port cities, San Francisco, Mar del Plata, Astoria, the combined weight of sea lion colonies lounging on small vessels has physically sunk boats. Not dinghies, actual yachts. Boats worth tens of thousands of dollars, pushed underwater by animals who simply would not move. They were asked. They were honked at. They were hosed down. They growled and stayed. Marina owners have tried rubber mats, electric fences, fake predator sounds. The sea lions investigated each deterrent, decided it wasn't a real threat, and went back to sleep. And you might assume this is simple opportunism, a dumb animal stumbling into free food. It's not. A sea lion named Rio, tested at UC Santa Cruz, demonstrated something called transitive equivalence reasoning. If she learned that symbol A equals symbol B and symbol B equals symbol C, she could independently conclude that A equals C, without ever being shown that pairing. She associated abstract symbols with human letters and numbers. She solved logical chains that some primates struggle with. The researchers kept increasing the complexity. Rio kept solving. That level of cognitive ability, abstract reasoning, symbol manipulation, logical inference, deployed exclusively toward identifying which fishing boat carries the easiest meal. Every whisker on a sea lion's face contains up to 1,500 individual nerve fibers, a sensory system originally designed to detect fish movement in pitch-black deep water. In their current lifestyle, they use that absurd sensitivity to feel the vibration of boat motors returning to harbor from hundreds of yards away. They know which boat is coming back before it rounds the breakwater. They're already waiting on the dock. Genius-level intelligence, world-class engineering, zero ambition, peak efficiency, meerkat, the burnout employee. Somewhere in the Kalahari, right now, one meerkat is standing on its hind legs on top of a dirt mound, completely still, scanning the sky. It's not relaxing. It's on shift. The meerkat sentinel system, Suricata suricata, is one of the most tightly wound alarm networks in the animal world. While the rest of the group forages, heads down, digging for insects and larvae, one individual stands upright and watches for aerial threats. Eagles, hawks, anything with talons. And while it watches, it emits a continuous low clicking sound. Steady, rhythmic, like the beep of a hospital monitor confirming a heartbeat. That clicking means one thing: system is online. Keep eating. If the clicking stops, even for a second, every meerkat in the group freezes. Some bolt for the burrow, Others drop flat against the ground. The silence itself is the alarm. Not a scream, not a siren, just absence. The sound that isn't there anymore. What the nature specials don't mention is what that kind of constant vigilance does to a body. Research on meerkat physiology shows that these animals spend roughly 30% of their waking hours in states of acute stress, scanning, monitoring, assessing social threats within their own group. Their baseline cortisol levels are comparable to those measured in human executives on the edge of burnout collapse. Chronic, grinding, unrelenting pressure. They're not cute little prairie dogs having a good time. They're middle managers with a surveillance problem and no vacation days. And the source of a lot of that stress isn't the sky, it's each other. Timon from The Lion King is a marketing lie. The dominant female in a meerkat group, the breeding matriarch, regularly eliminates the pups born to her own daughters. Subordinate females who dare to reproduce find their newborns removed, taken out by their own mother's mother. The logic is brutally simple. Colony resources are finite. Every pup that isn't the matriarch's pup is competition. So she gets rid of them. If a subordinate female breeds too often, the matriarch may exile her entirely, forced out of the group, alone in a desert full of things that want to eat her. Corporate nepotism, but the consequences are permanent. Yet somehow, this same ruthless society also invented school. Cambridge researchers documented a structured teaching system in meerkat groups. Adults train juvenile meerkats to handle scorpions, one of their primary food sources and one of the most dangerous, in deliberate pedagogical steps. First, an adult brings a pup, a scorpion that's already been taken out. No risk. The pup learns what it looks like, how it smells, how it feels. Next stage, a live scorpion, but with the stinger removed. The pup can practice subduing real prey without the consequence of a venomous sting. Final exam, the real thing. Full stinger, full venom, figure it out. A structured curriculum with escalating difficulty. Scaffolded learning in a desert mammal that weighs less than 2 pounds. One more detail. Those dark bands around a meerkat's eyes, the ones that make them look perpetually startled, aren't cosmetic. The melanin deposits function like built-in polarized sunglasses. They absorb the brutal glare of desert sunlight, reducing reflection and allowing the sentinel to stare directly upward into a white-hot sky without losing visual acuity. A biological adaptation engineered for the perfect daytime shift. Built for the job, stressed by the job. No choice but the job. The meerkat society is a dictatorship with a cuteness filter. What happens when a species tries democracy instead? Honeybee, the voter, the queen bee doesn't rule anything. That needs to land, because it contradicts basically everything you've been told. The term queen bee implies monarchy, a sovereign making decisions, issuing commands, directing the hive. In reality, the queen, Apis mellifera, is an egg factory, a biological assembly line. She takes one mating flight early in her life, a single afternoon in the open air, dodging birds and competing with other queens, and mates with a dozen or more males mid-flight. She stores all the sperm she'll ever need in a specialized organ called the spermatheca, and never leaves the hive again. From that point forward, her entire existence is laying eggs. Up to 2,000 a day. That's her contribution to governance. She decides nothing. She directs nothing. She is, for all practical purposes, a prisoner of her own biology, attended to by workers who feed her and clean her, not out of loyalty, but because the hive needs her reproductive output. And if her egg production drops, the workers will raise a replacement and remove her themselves. Every executive decision in the colony is made by common worker bees, in public. The most extraordinary example is how they choose a new home. When a hive outgrows its space, too many bees, not enough room, the colony splits. Half the population needs to relocate. And the process for deciding where they go is genuinely an election. Scout bees, a few hundred experienced foragers, fly out in all directions to survey potential real estate. Tree hollows, rock crevices, gaps in structures. Each scout inspects a site, evaluates it for size, exposure, entrance orientation, distance from the old hive, and returns to the swarm. Then she performs the waggle dance. The waggle dance is a political speech. The scout runs in a figure-8 pattern on the surface of the swarm cluster. The angle of her run relative to the sun encodes the direction of the site. The duration of the waggle phase, the straight-line middle section, encodes the distance. And the intensity of the performance, how vigorously she dances, how many repetitions she commits to, encodes her enthusiasm. Her personal argument for why this site is the best option. Other bees watch. If a scout's dance is convincing, some of the audience will fly out to inspect the proposed location themselves. If they agree, they come back and copy the dance. Same angle, same duration, same conviction. Votes accumulate visually. More dancers performing the same pattern means more support for that site. The colony doesn't move until a clear majority emerges. No split decisions, no executive override. Democratic consensus, performed on the surface of a living cluster of 30,000 insects. And like any real democracy, the process gets dirty. When two scouts are locked in a dead heat, two sites with nearly equal support, neither gaining enough momentum to win, one bee will physically headbutt the other mid-dance. Full contact, right in the middle of her political speech. And she emits a specific acoustic signal while doing it. A short, sharp vibration that researchers have translated functionally as a stop signal. A biological shut up. Physical intimidation to break a political stalemate. Filibuster by force. Thomas Seeley, a biologist at Cornell, spent years studying this process and published his findings in a book called Honeybee Democracy. His conclusion was uncomfortable for humans. He proved mathematically that the bees' collective decision-making system, the scouting, the dancing, the inspection, the headbutting, produces fewer errors of practical judgment than most human corporate boards, and fewer than most modern democratic governments too. The mechanism that makes it work is a structure in the bee brain called the mushroom body. Proportionally enormous relative to the bee's total brain size, the mushroom body handles spatial memory, social integration, and the processing of complex environmental data. It's what allows a bee to watch a colleague's dance and decode it as a geographic vector, direction, distance, quality, and then hold that data while comparing it to competing presentations. A biological vote-counting machine. And the democracy doesn't stop at real estate. Inside the hive, workers collectively regulate temperature with the precision of a thermostat. When the brood chamber gets too hot, hundreds of workers fan their wings in coordinated shifts at the entrance, pushing air through the hive like a ventilation system. When it gets too cold, they cluster together and vibrate their flight muscles without moving their wings, generating heat through sheer effort. They hold the brood chamber at exactly 35 degrees Celsius, plus or minus 1 degree. No foreman, no blueprint, just thousands of individuals responding to local conditions and producing, collectively, an engineering outcome that holds steady around the clock. 50,000 workers. No president, no parliament, just a waggle dance, a headbutt, and better decisions than the board of directors at most Fortune 500 companies. We named her queen and assumed she was in charge. She wasn't even in the room when the decisions got made. The fatherless delinquent. African elephant, South Africa, early 1990s. Rangers in Pilanesberg National Park started noticing something they couldn't explain. Black rhinoceroses, 2-ton animals with no natural enemies, were being found roughed up, sometimes critically injured, sometimes no longer breathing. The injuries didn't match any known predator. Not lions, not hyenas, nothing in the usual catalog. It took months to find out who was responsible. Adolescent elephants, groups of young males barely out of their juvenile years, were targeting black rhinos with coordinated, deliberate aggression, not for food. Elephants are herbivores, not in self-defense. The rhinos weren't threatening them. These were unprovoked attacks, sustained, repeated, and increasingly brazen. The same groups blocked roads, charged tourist vehicles, flipped a car. Gang behavior from elephants. The African elephant, Loxodonta africana, is supposed to be the gentle philosopher of the savannah. The wise giant who mourns its fallen, who touches the bones of relatives with its trunk in what looks indistinguishable from a funeral. So what happened? Biologists from the University of Colorado collected fecal samples from the adolescent males. Cortisol analysis. The results were disturbing in a specific clinical way. The hormone profiles of those elephants perfectly mirrored the brain chemistry of human soldiers returning from conflict zones with post-traumatic stress. Same patterns, same dysregulation, same signature. Every one of those young males had watched their mothers get taken by poachers. Some had watched entire family units get removed during culling operations years earlier. They were orphans, and they carried that weight in a brain built to never let go of it. The elephant hippocampus, the structure responsible for long-term memory and emotional processing, is enormous, disproportionately large even for an animal this size. It's the biological foundation behind the old saying that an elephant never forgets. But that's not a charming quirk. It's a burden. They carry grudges, grief, and trauma for 50 years or more. An elephant that witnessed something devastating at age 5 is still processing it at age 55. The memory doesn't fade. It just gets heavier. But there was a second layer to the Pilanesberg crisis, and it had nothing to do with trauma. Those adolescent males had no older bull elephants around. In a normal elephant society, mature bulls regulate the behavior of younger males. They impose boundaries. They absorb testosterone surges by establishing clear social hierarchies. They're mentors, disciplinarians, living proof that there's a way to be powerful without being destructive. The poachers had taken the bulls too. What was left was a generation of young males flooding with testosterone and cortisol, carrying unprocessed trauma, with zero behavioral regulation, no fathers, no uncles, no structure. The biological proof that fatherlessness produces delinquency is not limited to one species. The fix was almost too simple. Wildlife managers brought in 2 old bull elephants from Kruger National Park. Within days, the bulls physically confronted the adolescents, not with aggression, with presence. They established dominance, reimposed social hierarchy, and through sheer proximity began regulating the hormone cycles of the younger males. Testosterone levels in the adolescents dropped measurably. The rhino incident stopped within weeks. The rate fell to nearly 0. 2 old bulls undid years of destruction, not with force, but with structure. With the quiet, immovable authority of someone who's been through it and came out the other side. An elephant processes its worst moment for 50 years. That's not a metaphor. That's a measurement. The elephant breaks under the weight of what it remembers. The dolphin breaks under the weight of having nothing worth remembering at all. The grudge keeper. Crow. When a crow finds the remains of another crow on the ground, something happens that looks, at first glance, like grief. Dozens of crows descend from the surrounding trees and gather in a loose circle around the body. They don't touch it. They don't vocalize much. They just stand there. For years, people called these crow funerals. It's a beautiful idea. It's also wrong. What researchers actually documented is closer to a crime scene investigation. The crows aren't mourning. They're working. Each bird scans the surroundings, the ground, the trees, the rooftops, the fences. They're reading the scene. Was there a cat crouched in the hedge? A hawk perched overhead? A specific human who lingered too long nearby? They catalog every variable. Some researchers observed individual crows returning to the same spot hours later, alone, to re-examine the area after the crowd dispersed. And then the information spreads. From that point on, every crow in that local population knows this spot is flagged. That predator is filed. The surveillance policy updates in real time, and it doesn't expire. Which brings us to Professor John Marsluff at the University of Washington, who designed one of the most unsettling animal cognition experiments ever conducted. His team made a mask, a rough, caveman-looking face, intentionally creepy, and wore it while trapping crows on campus. They handled the birds carefully, banded them, and released them unharmed. The whole process took a few hours across a few days. Then they put the mask away. As a control, they also had researchers walk the same routes wearing a different mask, one the crows had never seen during a trapping event. The crows ignored it completely. The neutral face meant nothing. Months later, a researcher put the caveman mask back on and walked across campus. Crows dive-bombed him. Not the crows that had been trapped, crows in general. Birds that had only watched the trapping from nearby trees recognized the face and attacked on sight. Marsluff repeated the test. Same result, every time. The neutral mask still got nothing. Then years passed. 5 years, 7 years, a decade. New researchers, students who hadn't even been enrolled at the university during the original experiment, put on the caveman mask and walked through the same area. Crows that had been born years after the trapping took place, crows that had never seen a single member of their flock get caught, attacked the mask. Aggressively, relentlessly. The grudge had become folklore. Not metaphorical folklore, functional folklore. The original crows had communicated the threat to their offspring. Those offspring communicated it to theirs. A face that wronged the flock one time, on one afternoon, became permanent cultural knowledge passed across generations of birds that had zero personal experience with the event. This isn't instinct. Instinct doesn't specify a particular rubber mask, and the scale of it matters. If a person threatens a single crow, throws something, chases it, even just handles it roughly, that crow doesn't just remember, it recruits. Within days, crows that were nowhere near the original incident begin targeting that specific person. Daily aerial ambushes, dive bombs, loud coordinated alarm calls every time the person steps outside. This can go on for 7 years, sometimes longer. The crows rotate shifts. New birds join the campaign. It becomes a community project. Cancel culture, but with talons and a shift schedule. Now here's where it gets structurally strange. Birds fly. Flight imposes brutal weight limits on everything, including the brain. Mammals solved intelligence by expanding the neocortex, folding it, wrinkling it, packing surface area into a thick, heavy shell of gray matter. Crows couldn't afford that. A brain that heavy doesn't get off the ground. So evolution found another way. Inside the crow's skull sits a structure called the nidopallium, a region that didn't grow outward. It grew dense. Neuron counts per cubic millimeter in the nidopallium rival or exceed those of chimpanzee cortex. It's a microprocessor. Tiny footprint, massive throughput. Optimized for exactly two things: solving puzzles and holding grudges. The result is an animal with a brain the size of a walnut that outperforms the best human-engineered security cameras in continuous facial recognition accuracy. Not in a lab, outdoors, in open air, across shifting light, angles, seasons, and years. A crow sees your face once in the wrong context and files it permanently across its entire social network with no expiration date. Marsluff's caveman mask experiment is still running. It's been over 15 years. The crows on campus still attack it. The crows wearing that grudge today have never met a crow who was there when it started. The crow remembers every threat. The red fox remembers every possession. The compulsive hoarder. Red fox. A red fox enters a henhouse containing 30 chickens. She needs one, maybe two if she's feeding cubs. She takes all 30, not over several nights, in one frenzied session, an adrenaline-fueled spree that has nothing to do with hunger and everything to do with a circuit in her brain that cannot stop acquiring when abundance is available. Biologists call it surplus taking, a compulsive response triggered by the combination of easy prey and enclosed space. The fox doesn't eat them. She doesn't even want them. Not all of them. Not right now. But she takes them anyway, because some deep neurological wire tells her that available resources must be secured immediately. No exceptions, no rational override. Then comes the stranger part. She spends the rest of the night burying them. Not in one pile. That would be efficient. And this isn't about efficiency. She distributes the remains across dozens of separate caches scattered throughout her territory. One here, behind a garden wall. One there, under a hedgerow. Another 40 meters away, beneath a shallow scrape near a drainage ditch. Each burial is its own location, its own mini-vault. And each one gets tagged. The fox's salivary glands produce chemical markers, unique molecular signatures that she deposits on every cached item. These aren't random scent marks. They're inventory labels. Her brain maintains a three-dimensional mental map of every single cache across her territory. She knows what's buried, where it's buried, and whether anything has been disturbed since her last visit. A GPS-tracked warehouse of things she mostly doesn't need. One monitored suburban fox in England maintained over 80 active caches simultaneously. 80 separate buried items scattered across streets, gardens, parks, and alleyways. She visited them on rotation, not to eat from them, but to check, to make sure nobody had taken her stuff. A fox walking a nightly patrol route past 80 buried possessions she has no immediate use for. Driven by the compulsion to confirm they're still hers. It's hard not to see a storage unit with a monthly fee that nobody ever opens. But here's where the fox story takes a turn that has nothing to do with hoarding. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev started an experiment in Siberia. He wanted to understand domestication, not train it, understand it. So he took wild silver foxes, a close relative of the red fox, and began selecting them for one trait only: tameness. The foxes that showed the least fear and the least aggression toward humans were bred. That's it. No obedience training, no behavioral conditioning. Just, which fox is calmest around people? Within a few generations, something unexpected happened. The ears flopped. The tails started curling upward. Some foxes developed spotted coats. They began wagging their tails when humans approached. They whimpered for attention. They licked researchers' hands. Belyaev hadn't selected for any of those traits. He'd selected only for tameness. But tameness, it turned out, was wired to the same developmental pathways that control ear cartilage, coat pigmentation, tail posture, and, critically, the neurochemical systems governing social bonding. Change one dial and the whole dashboard shifts. The experiment is still running. Over 60 years now. The latest generation of Belyaev's foxes behave in almost every measurable way like dogs. They seek eye contact with humans. They respond to pointing gestures. They develop chronic, measurable anxiety when left alone. The compulsive hoarder, the animal that trusts nothing outside itself, that buries 80 possessions across its territory and patrols them nightly, became in just a handful of generations an animal with a chronic need for human approval. The compulsion didn't disappear. It just shifted from objects to affection. The fox hoards because it trusts nothing outside itself. The last animal on this list survives because it trusts completely.